Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
Alrighty, hey folks, this is Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you once again as we transmit live once again from the Asylum Studios, broadcasting from the Pimple on the backside of Texas, the beautiful city of Eagle Pass. And of course, doing the very best that we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we can muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. All righty, folks, it really is great to be with you. It's a beautiful Wednesday night here in the desert where it is a beautiful 52 degrees right now. It is absolutely beautiful night out there. Excited to be here tonight. And I'm going to tell you two reasons why I'm excited to be here tonight. Number one, because of our guest. Number two, because we are close. Today's the last show of 2 weeks straight shows every day. And I am tired. I am beat, my friends. I am absolutely beat. So tomorrow we have no show. We're off tomorrow. We're right back here on Friday. Another great guest lined up for Friday. And then I don't think we have a show scheduled for Saturday, thank God. Oh, my Brooklyn came out. Did you hear that? Saturday. All right. But yeah, I'm punchy tired. Yeah, absolutely. So no, I don't think we have a show Saturday, but then we're right back here on Sunday with another show. And so we're back to business, back to the usual schedule. And yes, I did change the mic stand again because I am not happy. I can't find the sweet spot for the microphone. If I use the boom, I got a shadow. If I use this thing, I'm knocking into it. I don't know what else to do. Suggestions, drop them in the comments below. Let me know what you think. If you want me to shut up, don't say anything. All right, just leave it alone. All right. So, folks, I hope you caught the show last night. We had a great time with Kim. She was a fantastic guest. We went, I know we went over the hour, but we just had such a great conversation about our dogs, about pets. We hardly got into anything that the show was really all about. But it was a great conversation anyway. It was a lot of fun. We had a great time. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. It is available to you on Rumble, on YouTube, and all the other audio places that you could track it all down. All right. Now, tonight we're going to have Bruce Wawrzyniak. I hope I said it right. If I didn't say it right, he can correct me when he comes on. I've been practicing that all day. Okay. I've been calling everybody Wawrzyniak all day at the job. Hey, Wawrzyniak. And people look at me like I'm nuts. But, hey, it worked. It's stuck in the old brain here. All right. Folks, just some quick little housekeeping things before we get started, as always. Don't forget, this is a live show, weeknight, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Very important that you do something for us. You have to like, subscribe, and share the show with all your friends, your family, your followers. Get it out there on your social media platforms. Let them know we're here. You know, we're growing slowly. It's a slow crawl, but we're getting there. And I'm really excited about some of the things that myself and my producing team, those who know, have in the works for coming up soon. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. And, you know, hopefully, Lord willing, knock wood, we'll be all right. Okay. And I want to say, again, thank you to our guest for actually showing up tonight. If you tuned in last night, you understand where I'm going with that. And I'm going to actually ask him that question because he is a podcast pro. All right. I'm going to mention it. I'm going to see what he says. All right. So let's get the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Don't forget, again, like, subscribe, share, friends, family, followers, live show, 7 p.m. Central Time. Check it out. Subscribe to us on Rumble. It's a beautiful place. You got to come over to Rumble. Get off YouTube. Come over to Rumble. When you come to Rumble, it's a beautiful place to be. It is always 72 degrees here at Rumble. Blue skies, white billowy clouds. It is a beautiful place to be. So please come on over to Rumble. Try us out over here. Much better than YouTube. No censorship. Limited. Absolutely no censorship, really. I say, I have 2 strikes on YouTube already, you know, and one more and I'm not there, and I'm not going to go back, and I refuse to do the sensitivity training they want me to do to get rid of the strikes. So one more, you got to come to Rumble. So come to Rumble, rumble.com/Joe Rooz. Check it out. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, yes, of course, our favorite, our audio host platform, podhome.fm. Podhome is the most modern, easy-to-use podcast hosting platform out there today. Use it to publish your episodes, enhance your audio, automatically generate chapters, titles, transcripts, show notes, and more. You can also podcast live through Podhome. Great platform. You get a website with Podhome. And now Podhome also has a feature where you could actually upload your video file, attach it to your distribution, and all the modern Podcast 2.0 apps will actually give an option to your listeners to switch between the audio and the video. So that's really neat. I don't know of any other platform that does it. I'm sure there might be one or two out there that do it, but I haven't found them. Podhome does it. So check them out. Podhome.fm. Podhome.fm, $15.99 a month. That's it. For all the stuff that you get with Podhome, $15.99 a month. And if you sign up today, 30 days free. So head over to podhome.fm. That's podhome.fm. All right. Also, please don't forget to head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. And when you get over there, open up that little contact form, little web form in there. You could fill that thing out, send it over to us. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, concerns that you might have. Maybe you have a complaint. You shouldn't have any complaints, but maybe you do. If you do, send them on over, and we'll give it the just attention they deserve. If you have a guest suggestion, maybe a topic you'd like us to cover on the show, let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you don't want to use the web form, totally fine with me. You can always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. Or, great idea, you could also drop a comment down below. Not a problem. We'd love to get those. So many ways to reach us. Make use of them, and we would love to know what you're thinking. And listen, also while you're there, take a look at the support page. If you have the means to do it, you can help us out. Just take a look at all the options available to you, and we would love to have you on board here as part of our team. All right, let's see, folks. Tonight's guest is brought to us by Podmatch. Podmatch is it's Tinder for podcasters. It's really what it is. You know, you set up a profile, they set up a profile, the algorithm puts them together, and you can match or pass. It's like it's Tinder for podcasters. It's great. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Met some really great people through Podmatch, great guests. I've learned something from every one of these guests. They are fantastic. So check them out at podmatch.com. Now, I got to read this little bit here. So most podcast hosts and guests spend hours researching connections, coordinating interviews, and working on administrative tasks while only spending really 10% of their time on what matters. That is bringing you impactful podcast episodes. Podmatch enables podcast guests and hosts to reclaim their time through automations and streamlined processes so they can focus on creating content that absolutely 100% serves their listeners. Check out the link below. Podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's the profile page for this show. Find out more about us, what we do here, and you can actually sign up through our profile. So check them out at podmatch.com/member/Joe. And you never know, you might be a guest on this show one day. It'd be a lot of fun. So hope to see you there. All righty. Now, tonight, we are very, very pleased to have with us Bruce Wawrzyniak. He's a publicist, a podcaster, a speaker with more than a decade of weekly podcasting under his belt. Bruce is the president of Now Hear This, Inc., host of Now Hear This Entertainment, by the way, one of the top 2% most popular podcasts in the world, and an experienced PR pro who's worked in sports, music, and media. He's here tonight to talk about building a long-running podcast brand. We need help. Promoting creators. We need help. And what he's learned from hundreds of interviews and decades in the communications business. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Joe, thank you. And I have like questions, compliments, so much of what you said. Everything's been great. I'm just like an entertained audience member here listening and watching.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Go back and do the Brooklyn pronunciation of Saturday.
Saturday. You're going to get Saturday.
That's one that I remember.
Saturday.
Every day? You've been doing your podcast every day?
For the last 12 days, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, mostly because of schedule changes. And I was invited on a Tuesday night to be on a panel show talking politics. And so I got onto the show, but I had a guest scheduled that night. So we rescheduled, and I didn't want to push him off to the very, very end because I really wanted to talk to this guy. He had a great story. So I don't normally do a show on Thursday, so I opened up Thursday for him. So then that just added the extra day, and then I had a Saturday show, which I wasn't normally doing on that particular Saturday, but we had to switch a Saturday, so I went all the way through, and we're about 12 days in, so I'm a little tired.
Another note that I picked up was the platform that you say you've got 2 strikes against on.
Oh, you
did you call them? I was just going to say that.
YouTube. Yeah. I've been
That's a
calling
first. I've not heard it before.
Never heard that one? I've used that one for years, ever since YouTube started. Because when YouTube started, really all it was a bunch of idiots getting on there with the video camera, recording themselves doing stupid stuff. So YouTube, and it just kind of stuck with me. And sometimes I get
copyright Joe Rooz 2000, whatever year you first started saying that.
I don't even remember. When did YouTube start? Oh, we have a power outage.
Yeah.
Well, we're still connected. I still you.
Yeah, I can hear you, but everything looks like it's frozen up on my end.
Really?
Strangely.
Well, I see you. You're moving well. I'm looking at my monitor, and you're still up here on the monitor. So there you go.
There we go.
All right. You see, it's interesting because I mentioned politics and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, internet issues. I interviewed a great guy a couple days ago, Don Weber, who has experience in working in the more seedy side of government. And we started talking about some really deep political things, and all of a sudden his internet froze, mine froze, his blinked out, mine turned off for a second, came back, and we stopped talking about politics, and it was smooth sailing the rest of the night. It was wild. It was really
The Ghost in the Machine, to quote a album by the Police.
Yes, great album, by the way. Really, it's a great album. I love the Police. They're a fantastic band. And now you got the seed in my head. Now after the show, I got to go, have Alexa play.
There you go. And by the way, wonderful pronunciation of my last name. Thank you for doing your homework.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. I tried. I do try, because everybody mangles my last name. Rooz is my shortened version of the last name. Everybody mangles it, so.
Well, interestingly enough, you had mentioned in the intro my Now Hear This Entertainment podcast, and people are probably looking at the screen and going, why does it say host Catholic Sports Radio? That's my other podcast. And I learned so much from doing Now Hear This Entertainment that I was able to apply to Catholic Sports Radio. And yet, one of the mistakes I still make is I have all this housekeeping that I go through with a guest before we're about to start recording the interview. And I feel like I'm burdening them with so much that I just try to get through it all, and I go, okay, we're going to start now. And there have actually been a time or two where I do the whole intro, and it's got some meat to it. So it's not, 30 seconds. And then I finally read off their whole bio, and I say, welcome to Catholic Sports Radio. I forgot to ask this person how to pronounce their last name. And I'm like, I'm going to do the whole thing over again. And I'll sometimes say, I'm going to stop and do the whole thing over again because I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name.
You see, I can't do that. I do live shows.
Yeah.
So, I have to try to get it right. And I'll be honest with you, if I struggle with someone's last name, I won't say it.
I've had that happen where people have forgotten to ask me in advance, and they'll just say, welcome to the show. Bruce is our guest. And it does come across as rather awkward. Like,
it does.
I'm not Madonna. I don't just go by one name.
We call you W. There you go.
Could be.
I try. There you go. I try to, I try to get it. I try to get it right. Because like I said, I don't like when people mangle my last name, even though I kind of just shrug it off. Whatever. It's close enough, But I try. I do. Sometimes I do to get it. Sometimes I don't. All good. It's all good. In the end, it's what the content of the show matters, not pronouncing someone's name 100% correctly. So
exactly.
At least that's my philosophy on the whole thing. And I just made it up now, so it must be a new one. So we're good. So Bruce, let me ask you something. So if you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 2-hour coffee with anyone, who would it be?
Alive or dead?
Doesn't matter. Dead or alive.
I think for me, there's no question that it would be Jesus.
I love that answer. It's funny. I've asked that question a few times to different guests, and in the last week, I've had 3 guests, including yourself, say that. And I think that's fantastic. That is awesome. I would definitely love to do that myself.
And the people who don't say him they say somebody, and then you make them aware of the fact that they could have said him, and they feel like, oh my gosh, why did I just say dear old Uncle Bill, who I only knew for the first 3 years of my life?
No, I don't do that. I won't pigeonhole someone like that. But but there are people like, of course, I would love to sit down with the Lord and talk to him face to face, and and find out, what are you doing with me here? Help me figure this out.
Be careful what you wish for. There's the old, when Steve Martin used to do stand-up comedy, he did a bit where he said, he's imagining going to heaven, and he says, well, how many times did I take the Lord's name in vain? 1,000,006. Jesus Christ. And that's the punchline. So
Yeah, that's great.
you sit down with him for 2 hours, and I have so many questions, and he says, no. We're going to talk about you first, Bruce.
Let's talk about your use of language, my friend. Let's do that. Oh man, that's a good one. Another one, we were talking last night with a guest last night. My dad. I'd love to sit down with my dad and talk to him. My dad passed away 6 years ago, and I miss talking to him. I miss getting that earthly wisdom that my dad had. He was great. I miss him. I miss him a lot. But so I guess there's a few people I would consider, wanting to sit down with, but definitely the Lord is on top of the list. He's number one.
Yeah, I mean, when you only say who's the one person,
Yeah.
to me that's no brainer. I think it's actually more difficult because you do hear the question from time to time. 3 people that you would like to, right? And you go, oh, and and Jesus is on that list, but then you think of the other 2. It's like the other 2 are harder than the first one.
True that. Very true. Very, very true. So, so if you had the opportunity to post one sentence on a billboard that everyone would see, what would it be?
Man, it's really bad that the first thing that comes to my mind is promoting one of my podcasts. Please go listen to, insert podcast title here. As a publicist many years ago, one of my clients, I used to kind of be the guy who would like, oh, gee, her website address ended up on a whiteboard, in some common area, out in public.
Okay.
I was that guy that would always write her website everywhere. And it's kind of occurred to me over the years that, if you think you're going to go in a men's room and the wall is covered with people who have written all over the wall, and I start writing, my podcast website address, like I got a pretty good idea that people are going to know it was me.
Yeah, right.
I mean, yes, I'm thrilled that Now Hear This Entertainment is in the top 2% most popular podcasts globally, but I don't think there's people writing nhte.net on bathroom walls to say, this guy's podcast is great, you got to go listen to it. Even dropping a business card. I'm always amazed at people that go to conferences and they just litter the countertops. I don't really think that that's the form of guerrilla marketing you want to kind of hang your hat on. Is I laid all kinds of business cards all over the place at this thing. Like, yeah, and the hotel staff really doesn't like you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a waste of a lot of money too, because most of that stuff's going into the trash. It's worthless. So
I'm ducking your question. I think I think you have to go with the knee jerk. I mean, if that's what my first thought was, I probably would, have a sentence that says, go, listen and learn at nhte.net, because the curiosity is going to get to people. One of the tips I give out, I always speak at PodFest in Orlando every year, and I do this presentation called 20 plus ways to promote your podcast. And one of the tips that I give out is having apparel that has your podcast advertised on there. And I always will make a joke, why are you showing up to PodFest and wearing a John Mayer concert t-shirt? Like, he doesn't need your help. John Mayer is popular enough. And I say, so if you're wearing something with your podcast on it, but I always go out of my way to say, print on the back also. Here in Central Florida, there's a business called Big Frog, and they do printing such that you can literally go to Walmart or Target or Ross, one of those kind of stores, and buy one shirt, bring it into them, and they'll print whatever you want on it. And the lesson is print on the back too. Don't just get your logo here. And so I always print the website address on the back. And what I say at PodFest to the conference attendees is, at a conference like this one, if I'm sitting up in front and you're behind me all day, you're going to finally go, all right, what is this nhte.net that I keep
great.
seeing on the back of this guy's shirt? And I've also had people who will yell up to me on an escalator, "Hey, Bruce," because they see the back of my shirt and they know, oh, that's Now Hear This Entertainment.
Nice.
So, the curiosity factor is there. So if I put up on a billboard, go listen and learn at nhte.net, people are going to go, what is that? And they're going to land there and go, oh, podcast, cool, music interviews. Yeah, I check this out.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It does. Like I have a couple of T-shirts that I printed out, and but I only did it on the front, and I thought about that too, because I was like, they see me coming. I want them to remember me when I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So
sometimes I'll go so far as to ask either the person next to me or the people behind me, is the website address sticking up above the top of the chair? Because it's like a moot point if it's not showing.
True.
But I always say in that presentation, if not you, then who? Somebody might go, that's kind of silly, oh, print the website. Well, if I don't do it, there's not a bunch of other people that are walking around with my website address on the back of their shirt. So if I don't do it, no one else is going to. And if it gets me one new listener, one new follower, subscriber, whatever you want to call it, then it was worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do. I had made stickers, and I went around to some local businesses, and I dropped off the stickers. And then about a month later, I changed the name of the show, so it just served no purpose. It just wasn't going anywhere. So, but those are great ideas. Actually, I'm going to start taking some of those to heart here and work those into my repertoire. We'll do that.
Yeah,
sure.
And I must say, I just had on Sunday, 3 days ago, I just had the 7-year anniversary of Catholic Sports Radio, but I'm coming up in 13 days on the 12-year anniversary of Now Hear This Entertainment. And I absolutely, when I said it earlier, I was being serious. I kind of learned my mistakes from Now Hear This Entertainment and applied them to Catholic Sports Radio so that I was really able to kind of, hit the ground running. It's a cliche, but it's true. When I started that show, my biggest challenge was, where am I going to find guests? Because it's so specific, the niche to say you have to be Catholic and you have to be a current or former athlete, coach, referee, umpire, clergy, administrator, whatever. It's more difficult than you think, especially when you get the people like you were saying to your audience. If there's a guest you'd like to see, put it in the chat. And people, they just kind of go with, everybody knows about Tim Tebow, or back in the day, like Jeremy Lin, he was a big one that in the Christian community, but they're not Catholic. And so people will be kind enough to send me these suggestions. And the first question I say is, do you know if they're Catholic? And sometimes people don't know is the thing. And so I checked that out. There was somebody, I think a month or two ago at the most, that emailed me and said, I've got a couple suggestions for you, and gave me these names. And I made the mistake of figuring, well, this person that I was corresponding with, they were Catholic. So I made the mistake of assuming, well, it sounds like they might almost know these people. So I just fired off an email to the first guy and asked him to be on the show. And he was kind enough to write back and say, I love what you're doing. This is a great ministry. And if you ever get to the point where you're interviewing non-Catholics, I'd love to be on the show.
That was nice.
Well, there you go. But I always like to tell the story of the fish and the loaves from the Bible, that, here they were standing looking at this crowd and saying to Jesus that, we don't have enough to sustain ourselves. There's thousands of people here, and look at what we have in this basket. The fish and the loaves that we have is not even going to come close. And here I was thinking, okay, I learned all these lessons from my first podcast, and I feel the call to do this next one. And so I knew, one of the tips that I give out to new podcasters who haven't even recorded a single episode yet is plan out your first at least dozen, maybe 15 episodes. Especially if you're going to do, either way, you're either going to make sure you make a list, if you're going to do an interview style show, of the guests that that you can get. Not that you would like to have on, the guests that will say yes. So you can exhale and say, okay, I got when I started Now Hear This Entertainment, somehow I knew enough to do that, even though that was, the beginning of 2014. And I made a list of 20 people that I knew would say yes. Catholic Sports Radio, it was a little more difficult because I thought they got to meet these specific criteria. And lo and behold, I think I came up with like 45, 46, 47, 48 names. Now, these were not people that I knew. I didn't know that they would say yes or not. And now is where we picked the Bible story back up, because I started to think about it and think about it and think about it. And I got more and more discouraged and thought, oh man, like I do have to get a hold of all those people somehow. And then they have to say yes. And even if every single one of them did, I was planning on it being a weekly show. I thought, this is not even going to get me through a year. And this is something that I wanted to do long term. And so I kind of started to back off, and I thought, I don't know, I think I got to think this through a little bit more, and kind of flirted with the idea of maybe it should be every other week. And the more that I started doubting and backing off, all of a sudden I recognized the presence of Satan. And I thought, that's what's really happening. He doesn't want the Lord's name lifted up any more than it already is, especially outside of Sunday. So despite that long Polish last name, I'm actually half Italian. And so the Italian in me flared up and got mad. I said, okay, that's it. And it's like the Lord said, Bruce, you just do the show and I'll get you the guests. And a couple days ago, I released episode 365. I've never missed a single week in 7 years. And so if you go back to that Bible story, it's like, I don't have enough. I have close to 50 names on this guest, and I want to do this long term, and it's not going to be enough to, and here we are 7 years later, and he just keeps putting somebody new in the guest seat every week.
That's great. That's a great story. When I started this podcast, I started doing stuff like this back in 2015, 2016, when we called it internet radio. And so I had a show. I did it once a week. It was a live show with two of my buddies up in New York. And we had a great time, a lot of fun. It was mostly politics. I was a conservative voice. My friend Jay was the liberal voice. The other Joe in the room was the libertarian voice. And Joe never really spoke. He kept quiet, but it was his studio and he was letting us use it at no charge as long as we let him on the show. So, but every now and then when Jay and I would start arguing, he would get involved, and we would call that the voice of God, because he just had a thundering voice. And he would just say, "All right, boys, that's enough." So it was like that. But we had a great time doing it. It was a lot of fun. We actually had call-ins. We enjoyed it. It was great. But the technology really wasn't there for us to do it remotely. So when I moved here to Texas 10 years ago, we had to let it go. There was some technology in place, but it wasn't the high quality that you're getting now, and that's even improving. And then when I got here, I didn't really do anything. I tried to do something on my own, but I just wasn't feeling it. And then I don't know. I just, as one day, I'm not Catholic. I'm born again Christian. But I got into, I just something came over. I say, you know what? Let's try a Bible study podcast. So I did this Bible study podcast for 3 years, and I did a ton of series. Like just working my way through passages and expository type preaching or teaching and through that. But I started teaching from the book of Daniel back in November of 2024, and I got about 7 shows into the book of Daniel, and I was doing it twice a week. I was doing a Thursday night Bible study and a sermon Sunday broadcast.
Wow.
So I was going through Daniel. I got up to like, I think 7 episodes into the book of Daniel, and all of a sudden I hit what I call preacher's block. I was reading the passage. I was studying the passage. I could not come up with anything that was usable, And so I said, you know what? Maybe it's time to take a break. So I put it aside. I said, I'm going to take a break from here until we'll go through from Thanksgiving through Christmas. I'll start again in the new year. So I took that time off. In that period of time, I got the itch to do something different. So I started this podcast.
Gotcha.
This one, my intention was, I'm going to do it whenever I feel like it. It's not going to be anything like rigid and formal and strict or anything like that, And like you, I had a bunch of people that I thought were really good, and they were friends, and I thought they'd be really interesting to have conversations with. So I set them up to be guests on the show, and we would record. And I hate recording, but we would record, and that's another conversation. I don't fault anybody for recording. I just don't like it. And I'll tell you why in a second. But so I would record these interview shows with these folks, and it was good. We had a good time. I actually had people come here to the studio, and I would record here in the studio with them. That was a lot of fun. But I don't know where it happened or when it happened, but all of a sudden it just started to go, well, let's add a show. So instead of doing it once a whenever, it became a steady 1 or 2 shows a week. And then it's like, well, let's do video, because I was only doing audio at the time. Well, let's try video.
Wow.
Really don't want to do video, but let's try video. So we started doing video. I say we, the royal we, So so we started doing the video, and then I don't know when it happened, but I signed up for Podmatch, and then I signed up for something called Radio Guest List.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, not understanding really well yet how Podmatch worked with the calendar and all that stuff, I was booked every single day, because I wasn't saying no to anybody. I wasn't saying no because I wanted the experience. I wanted to, hone my interview technique. I wanted to hone my skills with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so anybody who wanted to come on the show, anybody and everybody, you come on. I don't care what you want to talk about. We'll talk about whatever. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And here I am now, a little over a year later. This is episode 251.
Wow.
And it's been going great. But in the middle of all of this, that still soft voice in the back of the head started saying, don't forget your first love. And so now I added a Sunday show where I do Bible studies on Sundays, my Sunday Bible study.
Nice.
So I've been doing that, and I'm wrapping up. I just did an 18-week series on dispensational truth.
Outstanding.
And when I have the last episode of that's coming up this coming Sunday, and then the following Sunday I'm going to start teaching through the book of Revelation chapter by chapter. So
fantastic.
It's going to be very interesting. Now, this isn't stuff that I haven't taught before. I've taught this before in Sunday school classes and Bible study groups, and and all that stuff. So it's not like it's not something that I'm not familiar with. But of course, I'm changing it as I'm going through, because I've understood things differently now, and I'm a little more grounded in it, and I'm not taking stabs at things. I'm pretty good where I am with this, and so little changes here or there, but it's exciting. It really is, and it's just an amazing platform, podcasting. It
is, and what I have been amazed at is kind of piggybacking off of what you just said. I was at, again, Podfest several years ago, and someone was up there speaking and said that when you're a Bruce or you're a Joe, meaning you do an interview style show, they said you're giving your show away to the guest the minute you bring him or her on, and you've got to establish your identity, your expertise at some point early on before you lose the audience. And I really took it to heart. And where I'm going with this is I decided at that point that after I do my little housekeeping, my intro at the beginning, I'm going to stick in a little segment for like 60 seconds, 75 seconds, whatever. And then I'll introduce the guest, because there's another guy in the podcast community who's been around for years. And he always says they come for the guests, but they stay for you. And so I wanted people to latch on to Bruce gets good guests. But I really like when he does I call it my ministry moment segment.
Nice.
So once I open the show with my housekeeping and welcome and things like that, we have a bell that dings, and then I go into my ministry moment, and it's some combination of faith and sports mixed together. And then we'll do another bell when I'm done with it. And then I go into my intro. Exactly. And so, that, like you're saying with your show, what that has done, well, it's a couple things. Number one, it's forced me to go into scripture at a time when I otherwise wouldn't, because I'm looking for something that I have to come up with to say in this upcoming interview. But number two, I will often publicly joke that that's really just being given to me from the Lord, because I always say I'm not smart enough to come up with that on my own every week, because I'm very proud of that segment. And I think I'm proud of it because I'm getting it from him. Because as much as I'm joking, I feel like I'm not smart enough to come up with that every week on my own. But I do like that it challenges me. Okay, this is a time when you'd otherwise be, sitting at your desk working, for example. But instead, you're going to find some inspiration. You're going to go into scripture. You're going to pull something out and show people, just like my entire podcast is intended. You're going to show people how faith and sports can and should go together every day of the week, not just on Sunday. Sunday is actually kind of ironic that I say that because, one of the points that I will make to people like yourself when I'm kind of talking publicly about this is, we as men will go to church on Sunday morning and act like we're all into it. And maybe we really are. And all of a sudden, a few hours later, we're home screaming at the television, screaming at our spouse. You hear about domestic violence over sporting events or sports betting or both. And so that's a perfect time to remember where you just came from a few hours earlier, never mind as your week goes on.
Oh, that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. I like that very much.
But I do like the medium of podcasting. Obviously, I adore it since I've been at it for more than 12 years. I've done more than 1,000 episodes in my career. And I was just saying this over the fact that, there used to be a time many years ago, I was just on a business trip and somebody was interviewing me. And I said to this fella, so there was a time many years ago when you would watch Johnny Carson or Jay Leno or David Letterman and you'd say, I would sure love to do that myself someday. And it's like, that's a pipe dream. Like you could never do that. And I think I might have said to him, it was a 1 in a million shot. And I said, well, maybe the odds were actually longer than that. And so now here we are. You could go 5 days a week, 6 days a week, but on Sunday, I'm going to do a different show. And, the barrier of entry is low and there is an appetite for it. We do find our audience, who wants to hear what we have to say and you meet great people with all the guests. I mean, my gosh, I've had Mark Wahlberg on Catholic Sports Radio. I've had Mario Lopez. I've had Lou Holtz. I've had Mario Andretti. Very recently, I just had on a current Major League Baseball umpire. I had Mike Scioscia, who played for the Dodgers, and then he was a manager of the Angels for all those years. I mean, these are people that, think about it, you would never get to talk to these people without having a podcast. And, granted, Mark Wahlberg, full disclosure, I interviewed him at the time when he was promoting Father Stu, his film. So he was doing the press junket. And it's interesting that you were talking before about video and production and things like that, because I'm not ashamed to say that after 12 years and more than 1,000 episodes, I still do audio only. But when you get Mark Wahlberg and they're giving you video, you go, we're going to do this one on video.
Yes.
And I think since then, I've only done one other episode on video, which was last summer. It was a college student athlete. She had just won her second NCAA championship in a row, women's lacrosse. And it was just like all the planets aligned. There was this facility in downtown Tampa, here where I live, that had just opened up a podcast studio. The University of Tampa, where she played lacrosse and attended school, was right across the street. And I thought, how could I not take advantage of those facilities and go do a video podcast for once? She told a great story about, overcoming this terrible, terrible injury. And so we were able to show a clip of her getting hurt. But otherwise, I think I got so set in just doing audio back in 2014, and I had my routine, and I'm such a perfectionist that, to me, if I can't have lower thirds, if I can't have transitions, if I can't do all this stuff that I don't have time to do. And by the way, for your audience, that's not an invitation to solicit me with, I'll edit video for you if you record it.
I got you.
Yeah. So that's the track that I've stuck with. I've got a nice routine down. It has helped me, I feel, to put out a new episode on time every week of both shows and not have to worry about the video. And, full disclosure, Catholic Sports Radio, I tend to get, how would I say this? Probably more guests that are a little on the older side than I do with Now Hear This Entertainment. And sometimes those people are happy when you tell them it's just a phone call. Because if you tell them it's StreamYard like you use, or even Zoom, which is so common, some of them, Mario Lopez called me on the phone while he was driving to work. So there's the difference of, you're going to get him talking to you on the telephone while he's driving to work, or you're not going to get him at all. That's right. Where you say, thank goodness that it's an audio only show.
Yeah. And listen, I love the audio only shows. That's all I did for for quite a while. I didn't start doing video stuff until maybe a little more than 2 years into the Bible study show. And then with this one, I started it audio only. But, you know, I wanted to try it and see how it went. But it's addictive in a way. It really is, you know. It's kind of neat. But I am a perfectionist, and it drives me crazy, like when I have audio issues. Like I sometimes I have problems with and I think it's a matter of translation between the audio equipment that I use in StreamYard, or you know, where it's not coding properly or something, and so it sounds a little off a little bit here or there. And I haven't figured out the nuances of the video stuff yet. The other issue with the video for me too is that and the reason why I do it live is because I don't have time to edit and
Okay.
and learn how to piece together video stuff. Why?
Wow.
Because I have a regular 40-hour a week job, you know.
Yeah.
So
Wow, I hadn't considered that. That's a good tip. That's
you know,
a good tip.
so
It's a way to get yourself out there on video without having to worry about doing the editing.
right. And believe me, sometimes I wish I could edit. You know,
Of course.
like for example, with the show tonight, I made a mistake at the start of the show, and the mistake was I played the wrong countdown.
Ah,
All right, so the countdown that I have that I wanted to use has a music background, so you're not sitting there just looking at a clock ticking.
okay.
But I hit the wrong one, and so now what do? You know, I got to
But you know what's fascinating to me about this whole rise in video consumption for podcasts is, on the one hand, I'm dumbfounded by the fact that so many people tell me that they bring up, I'm going to say the right name. They bring up YouTube on their phone, they find the podcast that they want, and then they put the phone face down on their desk so they could listen to it. And I think, see, if I put all that effort into transitions and lower thirds and titles, and you're not even going to look at it, then I'm going to be really upset. Now, on the flip side, I'm happy that people are at least listening. I'm holding up air quotes, listening, because and again, this is a lesson learned that I wasn't able to do with Now Hear This Entertainment. So with Catholic Sports Radio gets fed to YouTube, and it just puts up a static image the entire time. So all you're seeing on the screen is just a picture of the guest. But I always say, without that, Catholic Sports Radio wouldn't be on YouTube at all. And this way, now it is. And I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine people are staring at the screen, looking at this guest picture for the whole 30 minutes or however long we talked. And I will often say, you might look at at my YouTube and go, he's got like 32 views on this one video. And I go, great. It's 32 more than if Catholic Sports Radio was not on YouTube. So
Right.
I don't mind it one bit. And if people are putting their phone face down, or I know in the car, you have to like leave the screen. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm always looking for more ways to grow my audience for both shows. You know, and if it means that I'm there versus not at all. I mean, you and I both hear all the time people say, you know, it's the second largest search engine in the world. So if something about what they're searching on, and it might be, you know, they're looking up Mark Wahlberg, or they're looking up,
Right.
you know, insert other guest here that I've had, and that brings them to Catholic Sports Radio. It's not unlike these shorts that I do every Sunday, where that ministry moment segment that I talked about, I put up a video that's just me doing that ministry moment, and someone may find that on YouTube Shorts and say, what is this podcast? And there you go. Now we got them in the door.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And that's why I like the audio host platform that I use, Podhome, because with them I get to broadcast the podcast live across modern podcast apps. Because I don't think you can do that on Apple yet, or Spotify, unless you're part of the Spotify plan or platform, which I'm not part of. I distribute to them, but I'm not part of their network
creator program.
Right. So, but like on the newer apps that are coming out, like apps like Podverse and Podhome's native app and all that, you can actually listen to the show live, and then it's available later for a download. And now with Podhome, you can, like I said during the promo, there you could actually insert your video file, so you can switch between the audio and video on those modern apps. But I when I started everything, if you saw the studio's an audio studio. That's why, you don't see the rest of it, because I'm not going to show it to you, because it's all acoustic foam everywhere. I have foam all around the walls, the ceiling, everywhere. It's an audio studio.
Yeah, you can see at least I can see at least one over my shoulder there, but I have this room so set for that reason,
You can
that
tell.
it's I can definitely tell the difference when I walk in, and it's I have always been an audio snob, and I will always tell people, you might actually lose new listeners who come to your show and say the audio is just terrible.
Yes.
It's not listenable. I distinctly remember one time, just, oh my gosh, it was painful. The only reason that I stuck through an entire interview is because I was particularly interested in the guest. Otherwise, it sounded like old bad AM radio. So I got these acoustic panels all over this room because I thought that's going to help, and top line equipment, things like that. And so the acoustic panels, I mean, some of them I've got show logos printed on them. The acoustic panels may not necessarily make the room look terrific, but I don't care. It's more about how does it sound when the listener is listening to it on, because I don't, you and I, we don't know what people are listening through. Is it their phone? Is it their car? Is it their computer? My dad would sit in front of his computer and he would listen to Catholic Sports Radio through his computer. And I can't imagine that the sound was too terrific on that, but that's why you strive to send out the best, so that at least you're putting it in a position to succeed sonically.
I agree with you. And that's why like nothing, a lot of podcast hosts and video, I try to differentiate between podcasts and vidcasts. All right. So this to me is a vidcast. The audio is the podcast. A lot of guys brag about, all this equipment that they have and such that, my audience bought this for me, and my, somebody from my audience, whatever they call that, they have an Amazon wish list or something like that, and they buy it off the wish list, whatever it is. Every single thing that I have in the studio, I bought myself, except my chair. Wow. The chair somebody got for me, because the chair, I was doing a show one day and the chair broke in the middle of the show, and it went like that. Yeah.
Whoa.
So somebody treated me to a new chair, but that's it. Everything else I have, I invested in good quality microphones. I invested in quality mixing boards, decent camera, lighting. I did all that stuff. Didn't ask anybody for anything, and I guess I hate to say I'm proud of it. You know what I mean? Because pride's not the best thing to have, but I am proud of it. I built this. No one can say that they did it for me. I did it myself. Yeah. And to me, that's a demonstration of my commitment to this. I am not going to invest the amount of money that I've invested in all of this just to throw it away one day and say, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's not unlike a lot of times I will tell people who are just starting into podcasting, or they're kind of knocking on the door thinking they're interested. I'll say, don't give yourself an out, don't give yourself an expiration date. Don't say, I'm going to try this out for 6 months, because you've already given yourself a reason to stop. And so you've made the investment is exactly right. And when people hear that I've never missed a week in 7 years of Catholic Sports Radio, I've never missed a week in 12 years of Now Hear This Entertainment, they're like, wow, this guy's invested. Like, he's going to be around. And we always talk about the verbal contract that you have with your listeners.
That's right.
Every Monday, people know there's going to be a new episode of Catholic Sports Radio waiting for them. Every Wednesday, people know there's going to be a new episode of Now Hear This Entertainment. And, that's something that I treat it exactly like that. Like, it's a contract. Like, these people are, because you think of the guy or the gal who says, like, you are part of my morning routine. And the minute that I get in the car to drive to work and your podcast isn't there, you just completely screwed my day up.
Yeah.
Go,
yes,
wow. I need to be there.
I know what you mean, because I'm like that as a consumer of podcasts and vidcasts. I'm like that myself. There are certain shows that I don't want to miss, and when they're not available, it's like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
I have 45 minutes to an hour of doing what?
Yeah.
I think I have a pretty decent audience that's committed. I think I get a lot of transient people that come in, check it out, and spend a minute or so, but my numbers are consistent.
Well,
so,
and I always say, there was a podcaster who told me one time, nobody listens to my show. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it. Nobody listens to it. I said, what do you mean nobody listens? He said, nobody listens. And I said, how do you know nobody's listening? He said, I've never gotten a single email from anyone saying they listen to the show. And I said, that's it? That's your whole basis for I have nobody listening, is you've never gotten an email? And he said, Never gotten one. And I said, when was the last time that you were listening to a podcast and you stopped to email the host? And he kind of thought about it. And then I usually go on this whole spiel about, look, we all have access to our numbers, through whatever hosting platform you have. I don't care if you have 10 people listening, 100 people, 1,000, 100,000, you're going to see there are people listening. And when somebody does, on Now Hear This Entertainment, I will tell people about buymeacoffee.com. So when people buy me a coffee, I know that they're listening to Now Hear This Entertainment because that's where they're hearing me say it. I have people who listen to Catholic Sports Radio that make a donation to my ministry. That tells me that people are listening. And yes, I do get emails. The social media engagement, you can tell the people who are engaging because they're actually listening. They don't have to come right out and say, loved this episode. You can just tell. If they're just clicking in a like, okay, maybe you can't tell. Mm-hmm. But as you can tell with how passionate I'm speaking right now, when somebody told me that they never got an email from a listener and that was their basis for concluding that nobody listens, I thought, wow, you're really missing the boat here. Take the blinders off.
Yeah, totally missed the mark. Like I love to hear from the audience. I don't hear from them often, on a rare occasion, I'll get an email. Rare, not often. I get actually on the weekly show, on the weekday show, I don't really hear too much, but on the Sunday show, I get a lot of emails. You're a heretic, you're going to hell, you're going to burn, all that stuff, which is fine. It's okay. Yeah. I know where I stand. I'm not worried about that. Okay. So, it's okay. And you think I'm kidding. I'm serious. I get a lot of that. I love my King James Bible, and I will always stand on my King James Bible. And I had somebody email me once to say that I need to crawl back under that King James rock from which I came.
Wow. But it's interesting that you're pointing out the addition, because when I do my ministry moment every week, I'm always using the New American Bible, and I will once in a blue moon put that out there. But occasionally I will read the passage and then I'll say, or to read it from and there will be something that came across my screen that I think, this version is kind of interesting. I'm going to include that one also. It's not unlike, I always close every week with a prayer, and sometimes it's this sportsman's prayer, which, funny story, I don't know if I've ever revealed this publicly or not, but where I got the sportsman prayer from was my parish. If you go over in the gymnasium, because there's a Catholic school attached to it, in the gym up on the wall is this sportsman's prayer. So I took a picture of it, and then I had postcards made up that, advertise the podcast on one side and have the sportsman's prayer on the back. And so a lot of times I'll use that. But the other weeks when I'm using, I won't go into what the source is, but the point is that, the lesson learned in the podcast community several years ago was about doing exactly that, citing your source. So in your case, you tell people which version of the Bible you're speaking from. When I do these prayers, if it's not the sportsman's prayer, I will put on the website, on the page for that episode, where this episode includes a prayer taken from. That way nobody can come after me and say, you're using that prayer, that's really ours. And it's like, look, this is a ministry for me. This is not a for-profit, commercial business. I always tell people it's not my full-time or my part-time job. It's just me giving back with my time and talent. This is how I'm giving back to the church. But I also want to follow the letter of podcast law and say, people should know where I'm getting this stuff from. Just like, if I've got someone on that, I just interviewed somebody recently who was a former athletic director at Duke and at Notre Dame, and he put out a book last year. So of course I'm happy to put a link, to their website so people can go check out the book if they want. I did kind of make it one of my one strong component of the show when I launched Catholic Sports Radio was, I don't want people coming on here trying to sell. Right. I got to a point where I told myself, look, if they got a book, you can ask them a question or two about the book. The entire interview is not going to be about the book, but because again, it's like you mentioned before, as a podcast consumer, right? I know that when I listen, I don't want to hear someone just sell to me the whole time. Right. So I kind of keep that in mind and think, okay, I want to be gracious to the guest and let them talk about this. It's, it's important for them. But at the same time, I want the audience to hear the full story of John Doe or Jane Doe, whoever it is.
Like when I do my interviews, this is inside information here. So when I do my interviews and I do my show prep, I actually structure my interviews. People might think not, but I actually do. And I have a section in my notes, for your biography and your background, and then from there it goes into your expertise, your area of expertise, your credibility, and then from there it goes into whatever project it is you're working on. And I limit the questions. I only have maybe a handful of questions under each category, that I think of, or Angela, my producer, thinks of, and we put them all down, and we communicate back and forth about what we want to leave in, what we want to leave out. But most of the time, I don't even really use the questions. Like I have 20 questions, not including what you posted as you're always ready to answer on Podmatch here, and I have not asked you one of these questions yet.
Wow. Let me stop talking and let you get at them.
No. That's not why I'm saying it. What I'm saying is, in the natural conversation that we're having, you've already answered more than half of the questions. Just in the way the conversation is being led.
Yeah, I have questions that I want to ask every guest every week, but to me, that old expression, the devil is in the details. What makes me a good interviewer is listening closely to what they're saying, to the questions that I planned on asking them, so that I can ask even better follow-up questions.
Exactly. And that's something I'm working on myself. I'm trying to get better at that. I think that I like the format that we came up with for this. And because what it does, it builds the audience up to credibility. It builds you up to the audience, lets them get comfortable with you, get to know you a little bit, and then make your pitch on your project. But we're not going to stay on the project the whole show.
Yeah.
I may put 3 questions about your book or your project, but the rest of it is all just your background, who you are. I interviewed some time ago a gentleman by the name of Peter Tickton. He's a very well-known lawyer. He's representing Tina Peters in Colorado with that election issue that's going on up there, and very high-profile case, very well-known attorney. He's a personal friend to President Trump. They went to military school together, all that stuff. I had him on the show. I asked him one question, and that was the entire show. I didn't get to anything else.
Wow.
I didn't get to anything else about the cases he's working on, his book, his project, nothing. Wow. I asked him one question, and it started off, and the question was very simply this. It was an icebreaker question. And it was, what's something about you that no one knows but should?
I like that.
And it went through, and he went through his entire life story. And I just sat there and I just sat there and listened, and
the way that you phrased that question, why I really liked it when you said it, is because it reminds me a lot of, in January of 2017, I was at an event where Aileen Quinn, who played Annie in the motion picture Annie, I don't know, like 1981 or something. I'm sure I'm off on the year. But she actually is a musician. So I was interviewing her for Now Hear This Entertainment. And I said to her, what is a question that you wish that you would get asked more in interviews that people typically don't ask you? And she lit up, and was so happy that I asked her that. And she actually went on to talk about Daddy Warbucks. I'm drawing a blank on what the actor's name is, but
Albert Finney.
Albert Finney. What a great guy he was, and how much she loved working with him. And she talked about a lot of stuff off screen, that people didn't know about him. And here I was coming to this interview thinking, like, I don't want to just ask her all about the movie because that was so many years ago. And she's at this event because she does music, and I want to ask her about music. It's not unlike when I interviewed Roy Orbison Jr., I told myself I'm not going to ask him very much at all about Roy Orbison Sr., because I'm sure everybody asks him that. And Roy Jr. decided, I'm going to talk all about my dad for this interview. And I thought, hey, if you want to do that, just like you're describing, with this attorney, the show is yours, Mr. Guest, Mr. Attorney. Like, if this is what makes you happy, as long as it's not becoming something where, it's boring, or he is trying to sell,
he was just so happy to talk about how he grew up in his life and the things he's experienced, the people he's met, and the jobs that he held, and things that, that nobody really knew about, how he worked in radio for years, and how he did all these other things. And that was one of the shows that I got some of the best feedback from audience and that was how they loved, people that obviously knew him, that he invited to watch the show.
Yeah.
They were commenting, no one's ever asked him a question like that. It was great to hear him talk just about that and not about anything so serious, just about life. It was great. And I loved it. I had a great time with him, and I invited him back, and he came back on the show. But this time we talked about his projects, and, we dipped into a little bit of some of the stuff that he talked about earlier in the first show, but he came back and we had a great conversation about legal stuff and about the stuff he's working on, but it still had that warm kind of just two buddies hanging out, just having a conversation, talking about things. That's what I like. And that's kind of the rapport that I feel like you and I have right now. We're just two guys, who love podcasting, and we're just shooting the breeze. It's
When I interviewed Mark Wahlberg, it got to the end. Now, mind you, I'll give you a couple funny stories about that interview. So they had told me in advance, you'll get him for, I think it was 10 minutes. I thought, 10 minutes? My episodes are like 3 times that long. And so I called up, someone that I, as they say, know, like, and trust. And I said, they're telling me they can give me 10 minutes. And I said the same thing that I just said to you. My episodes are and he said, Bruce, what's the question? And I said, should I bother doing the interview? And he said, it's Mark Wahlberg. He said, yes, you should do the interview. He said, just do all your other stuff later in post and mash it all together, make it, edit it so that it sounds like it was all done in real time. He said, yes, of course, do it. So the other funny story was that, you've got someone in your ear, like they're watching you do this interview. And so the person whispered to me, last question, which I knew it was, and they were even typing it in the chat. Last question. I said, yeah, I know. So I said, Mark, last question. I told him what it was. I said, amazing. Thank you so much. It was great having you on Catholic Sports Radio. He goes, that's it? We're done? Oh, come on, man. Like, we didn't even get to talk about your teams, who you're talking about, who you're rooting for.
Nice.
So it was great that we had that nice connection. And so then with my publicist hat on, one of my clients is a filmmaker. And he said to me, after I told him about this experience, he said, that means that Mark really liked you. He said, and that's going to go a long way, because when he has something else to promote, he's probably telling them as he finishes, like, hey, I like that guy. Let's keep him on our list. So they'll come back around to you and they'll say, hey, Bruce, Mark's got another project to promote if you're interested in interviewing him, all because of that connection and that little thing at the end of, what do you mean we're done?
Yeah.
So I thought, wow. And needless to say, I was exceptionally nervous going into that. And to have him, just talk to me like we've known each other for years and be so friendly. And obviously he's a pro, and to end it that way, really, really kind of lightened my load and made me think, like, okay, like, who else is there? Cause I can do this.
Oh yeah. I get it.
And P.S., this is after having done all those episodes of Now Hear This Entertainment. I mean, I've interviewed, besides Roy, I've interviewed the keyboard player for Aerosmith, the lead guitar player for Garth Brooks, the drummer for Cheap Trick, the bass player for Pink, the fiddle player for Taylor Swift, the trumpet player for Billy Joel. I've had, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Grammy winners, Emmy Award winners, people from American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent, somebody who won The Voice, actually, the X Factor. So, I've interviewed some pretty high profile people, but Mark Wahlberg kind of just, rose right to the top. And I thought, okay, this is, this is about as high up as it gets right now.
Yeah. And that's a great story, but I don't know. I always kind of saw Mark Wahlberg as a very approachable person, like, not very standoffish or anything like that. I guess they have their boundaries, but
yeah, not to pat myself on the back, but I think what guests enjoy about coming on Catholic Sports Radio is that it's something that they don't get asked about. It's exactly what you and I are talking about right now. People aren't asking them about their faith, and especially when you look at, okay, a guy like Mark, you figure, okay, he was playing Father Stu at that point, which, there was a little bit of boxing in that movie. He had been in a movie 10 years earlier where he played a fighter. He's always on the cover of fitness magazines. So he's got the sports connection. How much do people talk to him about sports? Probably not that much. How much do they talk to him about his faith? The only reason he might get asked about his faith a lot is because he's always doing promos for the Hallow app. Mario Lopez, the only way that I even found out that he had sports connection about his Catholic faith. But Mario Lopez, I saw something that said that he had just been inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I thought, Mario wrestled? So I looked it up. So when you get to talk to these people and you don't want to ask them about the same thing that everybody's interviewing them about, they go, yeah, I'd like to do this one. And then as a result, I'm able to sit here and tell you and your audience, of all these great, former NBA coaches that I've had on, NFL coaches, NFL players, MLB players. These guys are great. And you do remember, because of the subject matter that we're discussing. And by the way, for your audience, you don't have to be Catholic to listen to Catholic Sports Radio. You're not going to listen to it and go, I'm totally lost. I have no idea what they're talking about. But, because we do talk about faith, I think it makes us like just two guys talking that we happen to be recording it. So it doesn't matter, if it's, a current MLB player. They just know that this Bruce guy wants to talk to me about my faith. I'm sure he's going to ask me some baseball stuff. And it really, lends some nice camaraderie to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's great. And I did check out 2 shows of yours before we met tonight. One a couple days ago, and one of them was it was yesterday. Day before yesterday. So I really enjoyed it. I really did, and I think you did a great job, and do a great job on them. And
Thank you.
I am no pro or anything like that. That my slap on the back doesn't necessarily carry a lot of weight, but
it does.
I think it's great. I think it's a really good product, and you could tell that you enjoy doing it. You could tell that you put a lot of work into it, and you care about what you're doing, and not just throwing something together, just slap pieces together and just sending it out there. And and again, it goes back to quality, sound quality. Like I wanted to tell you, when we were talking about the audio equipment earlier and all that stuff, I have a funny story about that too. I did a show one night, and I was having all kinds of technical problems, all kinds. It was a video show. It wasn't only audio, but it was video. And I was having glitches and freeze ups, and the audio was like squelching, and it just sounded terrible. I could not figure out what was going on, what the problem was. And after the show, I sent I'm good friends with the owner of Podhome, my audio host platform, and he's overseas, so we signal chat each other. So I sent him a message on Signal. I said, you know what? I'm done. I am done. I am throwing all this crap out the window. I used other words. I am throwing all this crap out the window. I am done. I can't do. And he was like, and he wrote me back. He goes, "What's wrong? What happened?" And I said, "Here's the link. You listen to this crap, and you tell me what you think. What is wrong with my audio?" And he about 40 minutes later, he writes back. He goes, "There's nothing wrong with your audio." He goes, "Your audio sounds better than 80% of the podcasts out there."
So what was the issue?
I have no idea. I went back and I listened to it. The audio on the video was horrible. The audio on the audio side was perfect.
I mean, we are all our own worst critic, whatever you're doing in life. You could be a decorated accountant, or an attorney, real estate salesperson, name the profession. We're all our own worst critic. A lot of these musicians, these recording artists, these songwriters that I interview, they'll tell you the same thing. And P.S., then they've got this track record where, they've got, 9 million streams on their top 5 songs on Spotify alone. And you go, I think people are liking what you're doing. I think they're consuming your product. And your stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me ask you, I want to ask you this, because this is something that bugs me, especially doing a live show. What is one of your pet peeves with podcasting?
This is going to be a very unpopular answer. Okay. I think this comes from, you have to be a podcaster and a publicist like I am to be able to see this. But I don't like podcasters who charge people to be a guest on their podcast. That really upsets me. And I'll go even further with it. Okay, number one, I will tell my clients, now granted, we're the ones that are going out there and we're looking to place them into a TV interview or a radio interview or newspaper, magazine, online media, podcast, YouTube shows, whatever. And if they're an author, we're trying to get them book signings, we're trying to get reviews of their book, et cetera, et cetera.
All right.
But I will tell them, I'm not going to bring to you, here's an opportunity to get interviewed on a podcast. Oh, by the way, it costs, whatever, $35, because I know that there's countless podcasts out there that you don't have to pay to be a guest on.
Mm-hmm.
And what really bothers me even further is when I see these podcasters who want to charge people to be a guest, and they say, for your investment, you will be on a podcast that is distributed on, okay? So then they list all these different platforms that it's distributed on. Yeah, so are mine. And I don't go telling people, you're going to be on Catholic Sports Radio, and the show is heard on this whole big list of platforms. If you have the data, you put it out there, like you were kind enough to say at the beginning of this, that Now Hear This Entertainment is top 2% most popular out of all podcasts globally. Okay, that's what you tell people. But it's very much a smokescreen when you say you're going to pay this much and you're going to be on a show that's going to be put out on all these. Well, just because it's on all those, is anyone actually listening? So that's it. That's a real pet peeve of mine in the podcasting world. And I know some people are going to say, well, that's how I'm trying to make money. There's other ways to try to make money. Don't tell me about equipment costs, because you buy the equipment once. You don't keep buying new equipment every week.
Right.
So at least have costs that you can justify. Yeah, you might have a monthly hosting fee of $20, or whatever it is. But like, say what the real costs are. Don't say something vague, like, to help us continue producing the show. Okay, I mean, I get that as a podcaster, but as a publicist, if I wasn't a podcaster, I'd want to know, well, like what? Like, what costs do you have?
Yeah. And, I do say that, I'll be honest with you. I do say, to help keep the lights on and all that stuff. But if anybody ever wants to know what we pay, what I have to pay for, I'm happy to tell them. And anything that I do take in, none of it goes in my pocket. Everything that comes in goes right back out into the show.
On Catholic Sports Radio, I literally report exact dollar amounts. I'll say, I just got the renewal from GoDaddy for CatholicSportsRadio.net. And I tell people how much it is. Or I say, when I went to Podfest, that there's things like hotel, meals, gasoline, because it's just in Orlando, so I can drive there. There was the Catholic Media Association. They give out these prestigious awards every year. They have a huge conference and a banquet where they give these out. So I kept telling the audience, I don't send in Catholic Sports Radio each year because it's $150 to apply, to submit your podcast. And so I finally did it last year, and I said, that's another example of another expense is $150. Someone to maintain the website. I give specific dollar amounts so that people know if they want to make a donation to my ministry, this is what I'm using it for. And I say, I don't get any income from doing the show.
Yeah, it's transparency. I think that's the key to getting people to understand and to contribute. You're telling them the truth. And like I say, I don't pocket a penny. None of it stays in my pocket. Everything that I get in goes out. I have to pay for StreamYard. I have to pay for Rumble. I have to pay for my audio platform. I have to pay for, the list goes on. It adds up. The website, all that stuff adds up. And I've been blessed in the fact that I do have people that donate, and I am able to meet the majority of my expenses through those donations that come in, and what I don't, I pay out of pocket. So and that's fine. I'm happy with that. Would I love to be able to earn a living from the show? Absolutely. I would love to do this full time and not have to worry about getting up and going to work and coming home and then rushing to get ready for the show and all that stuff. I would love to be able to do that. I would love to be able to do the show during the day instead of at 7 o'clock at night. The only reason why I do it at 7 o'clock is because of my work schedule.
Well, but truth be told, there's going to be a lot more people who are available to watch it at this time of night than if you were doing it in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday.
Right. And I agree with you. But the one thing I'm not sure of is I like the long form talk formats. I'm a radio guy. I love that stuff, So when who really wants to sit down and listen to or watch a 3-hour talk show, at 7 o'clock at night? That's why I stopped doing the 3-hour shows. I only do the hour and a half now.
Apparently, unless your name is Joe Rogan, then you're right.
Exactly. No, I'm close. I got Joe Rooz, but we're not quite there yet. One of these days.
Joe R.O.
Yeah, there you One of these days, who knows? You never know what can happen. But I love what I'm doing. I absolutely love what I'm doing. So let me tell you my pet peeve, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. So I joked about this yesterday a little bit with their guest last night, because I went on a little screed at the beginning of the show because I was pissed.
Uh-oh.
So I do just for reminders to everybody watching and listening, I do a live show. I emphasize in the emails that we send out to our guests, this is a live show. Please let me know if there are any problems. Monday, I had a guest booked with me back in December and didn't show up for the show. No communication, nothing. I was pissed because, and I was also not only pissed at that, but I was pissed off at myself too, because ordinarily I have something back up so that I don't miss the show.
Mm-hmm.
I have something prepared that I can get into and talk about on my own, or I have somebody that I can call and say, hey, listen, my guest isn't going to come on. Can you jump on for a little bit? None of that was in place on Monday.
Yikes.
Because I just didn't have time to prepare anything on my own.
Yeah,
because
I think
my show prep at work on my lunch break.
I think we do have to tell ourselves as podcasters that, as upsetting as that is, if they're few and far between, and if it's a legitimate, some kind of quote unquote emergency, life happens.
Absolutely.
At the same time, I remember now, fortunately, I don't do it live. So I don't want to say I have the luxury because I know that I cut myself a little too close, of not having a huge queue waiting to be released. Mostly because I don't like finishing an interview with someone and saying, okay, it looks like this is going to be out, and it's like more than 3 months away, or the people that have me on as a guest and they say, I'm not really sure when it's going to come out, but we'll email you when it does. And think, how do you not know?
Yeah.
But my point is that I had somebody one time that they were scheduled for 2:00 in the afternoon, and I waited, and at like 2:05, I got a little nervous. And so long story short, I had kind of like, it was set up by their publicist, but I was able to find an email, and I emailed the guest instead. Hey, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to call in. Nothing. 10 minutes went by. So now it's a total of 15 minutes that they're late. I email the publicist and I say, I'm still waiting for so-and-so. Nothing from them. 10 minutes later. So now it's 25 past. I email again. I'm still waiting to hear from anybody. And so they finally chased down their client, who was supposed to be my guest. And I don't remember how long it was, maybe like 35 past the hour, that the guest finally called and said, that they double booked, and they were this was for Now Hear This Entertainment. They were in the middle of a writing session. And I thought, no, that's not good enough. I don't buy that. And when it is, granted, some of it's my fault of like, hey, I need this, otherwise I'm not going to have an episode next Wednesday. That's partially on me, but I kind of feel like, you've committed to something, you got to follow through, and you got to be responsible enough to not double book yourself.
Right.
So yeah, I feel you on that one. Knock on wood. They're few and far between when somebody flat out no shows. I think I've been fortunate enough that people will at least kind of contact me first, and say I need to reschedule, more so than no show. But yeah, I feel for you on those no shows, because like you said, you're doing a live show and you go, wow, what am I going to talk about for 60 minutes by myself?
Right, exactly. But like I said, normally I have something backed up. This time I didn't. And the people that I reached out to weren't available. They had other things going on. So what do? I waited until about 7:15, 7:20, somewhere in there. And I had to cancel all the streams. And then I had to go into social medias and I send out, sorry, we have to cancel the show. The guest didn't show up.
Wow.
Wow. And I'm not ashamed. I throw the name out there too. I did. I put it in the social media post. I've said it on the show yesterday. I'm not going to say it again today, but because I don't know if something happened. Maybe, God forbid, something really bad happened. I feel bad that I kind of jumped on him yesterday on the show, but justly deserved.
Yeah, I mentioned a little while ago that I recently had a current Major League Baseball umpire on Catholic Sports Radio, and he told us he was actually crying at one point during the interview, saying, how difficult it was that he was on the field doing games. And he said that was the only time in the day that he could take his mind off of what him and his wife were going through with one of their children at home. And it was so stressful. It was some mental health stuff that his son was undergoing, that he said it made such an impact on me. He said that, people don't know when you're at a baseball game and you're booing the umpire and you're seeing what you think you see on the field. You don't know what these people are really going through off the field. And he said, it's given me a whole new outlook on, and he used the example, if someone cuts me off in traffic, I don't know that they're not rushing to get to a hospital, that maybe there's not some kind of medical emergency. So, it upsets you in the moment and you go, I got this live show, the key word being live, and you're not showing up. And then you stop and think, gosh, I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I do. I'm sure. I'm hoping that everything is. I did email them, and but I haven't gotten any responses from it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. I just wish them the best and success in whatever they're doing.
That's
all
right.
I can do. That's all I can do. So where do you think podcasting is going to go in the next 5 years?
Well, some of the things that I've started to see have really been interesting as it relates to, I like Smartless with Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes and Will Arnett, and the fact that they've done these live events where people are coming to watch them in sold out theaters, essentially just doing their podcast. That's pretty impressive to me. Now, the fact that it's gone to the level of where Bill Simmons, his podcast is on the Ringer Network, and now he's doing his podcast live on Netflix. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother level. At the same time, I really think, Joe, that excites me, that podcasting has been so embraced and just is considered a regular part of society, that I think that's where we're going to see it go. I think you're going to see more and more podcasters get deals, where Bruce Wawrzyniak can be asked, we'd like you to actually host a show, and maybe it's my own show, maybe it's something new, we've been following your work kind of thing. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more, especially with the way that there's just so many streaming platforms. You can turn your smart TV on and you've got Tubi, you've got HBO Max, you've got, the list goes on. And, they may not say it publicly, but they're scrambling to make sure that they're filling as much as they can, because they want that $9.99 a month from the consumers. They want you to spend it with them and not someone else. So if they can offer you something that the other streaming services can't, right? They offer Bruce Wawrzyniak an exclusive deal. You can only see Bruce's show on insert platform here. That's going to keep more and more people coming back. And then, of course, then they start to advertise within your show about the other shows that people can see. So I think we're going to see more of that. And I don't think it's pie in the sky. I think there is, I think the reality is that you are going to see the Bruce Wawrzyniaks of the world. Again, it keeps going back to, you have to deliver quality. Yes, quality audio, but I could have the best audio in the world and have twice as many acoustic panels in here as I have already. And if the content is just then, I hope you're enjoying what you're doing, Bruce, because, there's not a whole lot of other people that are enjoying what you're doing. But if you're putting out great quality, and of course, you do have to hustle, you do have to get yourself out there and see and be seen. I think the opportunities will find you, the more you start going to podcasting conferences, media type conferences. If you go to shows like NAB, for example, or Infocom, some of these shows, the word will get around. Get yourself into the podcasting trades. People will read about you. And I think, I think 5 years from now, we're going to see, look at the way that I'm beaming about, wow, Bill Simmons is now doing his podcast live on Netflix. I think 5 years from now, so many people will have gone to that, that someone else will be saying 5 years from now, where do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. That's good. That's very good. All right. So who's somebody that you respect right now, and what are they doing that inspires you?
In anything at all, or just in podcasting?
Anything at all.
I think it's a little selfish, because we were blessed to have him as our quarterback here for 3 years. But Tom Brady, I have such a high opinion of him for when he came to Tampa Bay. And I really got to learn about who he is as a person. I saw, his unmatched commitment, to being the absolute best on the field. But I see all this stuff that he does now, quote unquote, in retirement, and it's just all first class. He's so thorough about what he attaches his name to, as he should be. But whether he's, part owner of the Raiders or, TB12, his own brand, he's into this trading card business now. There's so many things that he does that just amaze me. And part of it could be, this is a guy that doesn't need to be doing these things, right? I mean, the guy made millions and millions and millions of dollars playing football for all those years, and could just rest on his laurels and go on vacation somewhere different every month. And I just really admire the heck out of the way that he just keeps at it. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think he even has his eye on playing on the U.S. flag football team at the 2028 Olympics.
Wow.
And again, you go, why does he have to do that? Because he's Tom Brady, and he can, and he probably will. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about him. I was thrilled that he got us another Super Bowl, because it had been a while since we won our first one. But at the same time, did a lot for our community. And now just to see the way that he continues to thrive post playing days is really something.
That's good. Yeah, I could agree with you on that. I don't know much about Tom Brady. I just know what I know from, his days in New England. I kind of stopped following football for a while, so I kind of lost track of where people moved and went to. But yeah, he was one of those people that even though I knew little about him, I always had a lot of admiration for him and for his work, mostly for his work ethic. Because like I said, I don't know, much of what he did because I was in New York and he's New England. We don't,
the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So I just knew what I saw, and it was his work ethic that was really impressive to me, and just how much he put himself into the game and how much he loved the game, and so that was great. Yeah, I like that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm most certain that he's Catholic. Will I ever get him on Catholic Sports Radio? Boy, oh boy. I don't know what's more difficult, getting him or getting the Pope, because the Pope, I did finally find something that confirmed that he does have a little bit of athletics in his background. So the two of them qualify, but that's going to be it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
it would be
those interviews would have to be face to face. I don't know if I'd settle for doing it remotely.
No. Definitely have to do that face to face. I would agree with you on that one. Absolutely. All right, Bruce, so where can people go to find out more about you and about your work, sir?
Thank you. CatholicSportsRadio.net. I'm old fashioned. I always believe in sending people to a website for starters. You can listen to the show there, or there's some logos up at the top for Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, obviously YouTube. Or I always just say, just search for the show almost anywhere that you get podcasts. And then we didn't talk a whole lot about the other one, about Now Hear This Entertainment. Got to have that fourth word, but nhte.net. Same thing. You can listen to it there, or there's tons of logos on that site to go listen to it on other platforms. It's guests who are having success in entertainment, primarily music. Outstanding. And I'm sorry we didn't get into that. We just had such a great time with the other conversation. That's okay.
Just
lots of fun.
It was fun. So do you want to hang out backstage for a minute, and I'll get to you once?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right, folks. Bruce Wawrzyniak, great to have you here, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. God bless you. Have a great night. I'll see you in a bit.
You too.
All righty. All right, folks. That was great. Love that conversation. I'm telling you, we have the best guests you're going to find anywhere. So now I need you to help us get that message out. So make sure you like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. Remembering this is a live show, weeknight, 7 p.m. Central Time, and our Sunday show at 2 p.m. Central Time. So make sure you check that out. All right, let's start to wrap this thing up. We got a couple of quick things we want to say. Folks, I want to remind you to check out Diamond Dynasty Tax Group Legacy, a local business here in Eagle Pass, Texas, 830-867-7106. These folks did my taxes for me last year, did a fantastic job, maximized my refund, minimized my stress. It was great. Give them a call. Check them out. Diamond Dynasty Tax Group Legacy. All right. Don't forget also to head out to our website. Check us out there, joerooz.com, and look for the support page. If you can help us out, if you have the means to do it, You can find out more about how you can help us out on the support page on the website, so please do that. All right. Shout outs, of course, to our producing team, executive producers, Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Marissa Lee, and of course, the inestimable Anonymous Angela. Thank you guys so very much for all that you do. You guys, the best, absolutely the best. You guys, these folks donate their time, their talent, their treasure. We call it the 3 T's. So they do all this stuff, and without their help, we would not be able to put together these shows and do the stuff that we do. So thank you to our producing team. You guys are amazing. And again, if you want to help us out, just head over to the support page. You can see the breakdown of all the ways you can help support us, all right there for you. And we would love to have you as part of the team. All right, now no show tomorrow, so I hope you guys enjoy your Thursday evening. We will be back on Friday evening, so make sure you're here to check it out. And that should just about be all I got for you. All right, folks. Website, joerooz.com. Website, joerooz.com. Check it out. And let us know what you think. Questions, comments, cares, or concerns. All right. Make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. And keep talking. We'll see you Friday night, folks. Have a great night.